Oh, thank you for coming. There's someone over here who revs up their engines, and we're revving up. You know, it's metaphysical. We're revving up. Yeah. All right, let's take a deep breath. Spirit, we are grateful to be here, grateful to be revved up, grateful to be the presence of God in action, knowing that all of this comes together perfectly. We can feel the rev of Spirit just moving us forward, and we are grateful, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that lovely prayer. And I've been gathering lots of compliments on your message today, so I pass those on to you as well. I will try and yay! I will try and be mindful that my report is to end at 1:15, because on Thursday I looked down after I finished my president's report, and we were then a half an hour behind. So I will try and be more cognizant of the time and make sure I stay within the time limit that I set, so I should be able to do it. Okay, I think all of you are aware that we have been doing this in memory of, in honor of drive. It's been, I'd say, quite successful. The Mother's Day raised at least $400, and we're on our way to gathering more for the father. So hooray! What's even more significant to me is the outpouring of love that seems to bring. People really respond to that, and I'm very pleased about that. Just so you know, those names will be gathered throughout the year with these different drives that we have, and at the end of the year, we will update that sheet from the 80th Makahiki of who gave in 2018. So that will become the annual memorialization of that. I understand that the honorarium for Tim is going very well. So thank you, Jerry. I believe you were the one, Jerry, who had the idea. I thought that was brilliant. I had not thought of it at all. So I'm very pleased that that's going well. The membership badges have been well received. That was Salim Ahmed's idea, and it seems like people are really enjoying that. I've had several people come up and ask for badges. That seems to be doing well. People have reported, oh my gosh, I saw somebody for the first time in months and I could look down and know their name. So I'm pleased that it seemed to be having the effect that we wanted. I don't see why not. I would. Yeah. With any new ones, I would have to do it, because I can't print one at a time. But as I do sheets, I could do it on both sides. Sure, that's no problem. Okay. We're going to have a potluck to welcome Olga Lucia home on June 30th. So details will roll out during the month on that. It will be both a welcome home for her and a real sweet time for her and Tim in the beginning, and then we're going to sort of shift gears into sort of a fundraising fun mode and let them sort of slip out so he can be rested for Sunday. So that's sort of the general outline of what we're going to be doing for that. The main thing that I have been consumed with is the letter from the Attorney General. It has a due date of May 29th. It called for several parts of it. The main thrust in terms of document production was from the school, the Unity School. And I want to publicly acknowledge that we have had the full support of Amy Miyamoto and Sergio Galisa in producing these documents. And it does look like we will be able to meet that on time. Of all the requests, some of which were major, the only thing that we are missing at this point are bank statements a few months out of one of the years. That's it. Other than that, everything else has been produced and cleaned up. Amy has put the request into the bank for those missing statements. Hopefully she will receive them on Tuesday. But I believe that, 4 or 5 months out of that whole production, I would not be embarrassed, shall we say, to turn it in and say these few are missing. I think we have absolutely substantially complied. So I feel very pleased about that. I will be working through this weekend on the status of the request for info, because they specifically said Who has asked for information and been given that information? Who has asked for information and has been denied? So that is what I'm wading through this weekend. Okay, so I think this is what I like to be, finished well in advance. So now we will hear from Kathy in her finance report.
Who else needs a copy of the financial report? Did everybody get one? I have a few more copies, which I'm going to leave to Joanne in case anyone needs them. I think I'm going to use this mic right here. Good to see everyone, and it's always good when I run out of copies and have to get more, because that shows there's even more interest than I thought there was going to be. I have given you a two-sided page. This is the format that we get from our new outside accounting firm that keeps our books, Stephen Lee CPA, and they do report to us every month with what's called a statement of assets, liabilities, and net assets. That's on page 1, generally known as a balance sheet. It's called a balance sheet because it balances. You add up all your assets, get the total assets, then you take whatever you owe, your liabilities, and add that to your net worth, and that equals the same total as your assets. So that's our balance sheet. And let's see, we do have a little sheet here that shows basically some highlights of the balance sheet, what our resources are at this moment. At the end of April, our reconciled book balance of our unrestricted account was just under $9,000, so we don't have a whole lot of margin for error right now, and we're going to talk more about building reserves so that we will have more margin for error, but that's what we have in our unrestricted account. In our restricted fund, where we have money that's been given for certain specific purposes in our restricted bank account, and that does include the money that a lot of you put into the Action auction last fall that we'll be talking more about. But that totals up to $79,764 at this point. And then we also have our Legacies of Aloha, which very soon, as a result of the congregational vote, will be transferred into a new corporation called the Unity of Hawaii Endowment Foundation, so that this church will then clearly have a permanent endowment to make sure that it stays permanently in existence. And the nest egg that we have as of this moment is $459,000 to go into that fund. So those are our basic financial resources. We don't have a lot of debt, just routine payables that come and go. And the rest of it is our net worth as a church. That is over $1 million because, of course, we have a wonderful physical plant as well as our accumulated money in Legacies of Aloha. Let me go on from there to the other side of the page, which is what we usually spend the most time on, and that's our operating report, which is technically known as a statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net assets. So whatever comes in is revenue, whatever goes out is expenses, and the difference is the change in what our net assets or net worth amount to. Okay, what you see on this page is for the month of April, the actual amounts compared to the budget shows the difference, and then I've added over on the far column the accumulated amounts so far for this calendar year, January through April. You can see that in the month of April, our revenue of $40,000 was more than our expenses of $39,000, so that is actually very good news because the first 3 months did not turn out that way. So the first 3 months we were a little behind schedule on bringing in enough income to cover all of our expenses month by month, but we did manage to come up with more revenue than than expenses in the month of April. However, when you compare it to the budget, now the budget was adopted by your Board of Trustees back in January, and we are a very optimistic group of Firming Prosperity, and we felt optimistic that we would have had $48,000 in revenue this month. And so we're still holding that vision for each of the following months. And from what I've seen so far of May is picking up to be better than April, even though we had Easter and 5 Sundays in April. So each month is a little bit different. Our expenses were lower than the budget, and that is because one of our key staff members, Judy Sweet, had departed and was no longer on the payroll, and her replacement did not arrive until May. So that's the biggest reason that we did not have the expenses that we might otherwise have anticipated for the month of April. As you look over to the far side of the page, you see the January through April cumulative numbers, which I think Diana can put up. Oh, there they are on the screen, where for the whole 4 months, we had anticipated $175,000. As I said, we were in a very optimistic mood the first week in January when we were adopting all of this. And so far, the actual revenues have only been $151,000. And the expenses, as I said, are a little bit below the amount that had been budgeted. You can see that we knew, as it was last year, that our best months are at the end of the year. So even with our optimistic budgeting, we still had budgeted for a negative cumulative amount in the first 4 months of the year. It ended up being a bit more than we anticipated, $22,900. So that's the challenge that we have going forward. And I will just finish up my comments on this with, if we can go to the next page, where we have some goals. Because we did set budgeting goals when we started on this process back in January. And we did set a goal of having a balanced budget, and we adopted a balanced budget. But now our job as a community is to balance it as we go through the year, so that we actually do come in each month with more revenues than expenses, or at least for the year as a whole, we have more revenues than expenses. So goal number 1, cover all of our responsibilities and have a balanced budget, and make it an actual balanced financial report for the year. Goal number 2 is to build up some operating reserves so that we are not always on the margin concerned about, are we going to have something come up that we can't meet. So building up those operating reserves, which we feel need to be at least $100,000 for an operation of this size, which is about $500,000 a year operation. So we are working and holding that reality that we will have those operating reserves. And then plans for the future. That's another one of our budgeting goals and strategic goals, and that is developing a much more specific plan about the maintenance and improvement of our physical plant here, so that we're not just filling in when something needs to be done. We've got to deal with the roof today and the gutters tomorrow and something else the next week. So having a long-term strategy for how we support ourselves, cover our responsibilities, and maintain our operating plant are the financial goals that we have. At this point, I'd like to take just a little pause to see if you have any questions about the financial report that I've gone over just now. I see one question in the back. I think we have, do we have another microphone? Or can you come up to this microphone maybe? And just for the record, tell us your name and then your question. Is this one on right here? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jules. What else am I supposed to tell you? Hi, everybody. My question is about solar power and looking at that as a way of saving not only for expenses, but also for sustainability for our Earth.
I happen to be in agreement with that, Jules, that we do need to look at solar power. We have talked about it in the Finance Committee as to how we can go about it, because our electric bill is one of our big expenses here. And of course, that's where the long-term strategic planning comes into effect, because you have to be able to buy that solar system before you start getting the payback on it. There are some creative financing techniques that can be used. We do have one of our members and my longtime friend Peter Chiswick, who is in the solar energy business, and I know is interested in pursuing those conversations as we look towards the future. It's not an overnight savings, but if we can put together the plan and go through the process of converting over to rooftop solar, that would be very beneficial to us. I will say there are additional issues at this particular location, because you have to have a good number of hours of sunshine on your roof where you put the panels in order to make it successful. And we do have a lot of trees in this area, so we have to have someone look strategically at where those panels can be placed to produce enough energy so that they will pay for themselves over a reasonable period of time. So that's a good suggestion, and I really appreciate you bringing it up, because I think one of our duties as a community is to look at how we can make our resources go further, not just how we can raise more money, which we always talk about, but how we can also make better use of the resources that we have. Any other questions or thoughts at this point? If not, I had one other slide that I wanted to mention to you, and there it is. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. This says Annual Report to Unity Worldwide Ministries, and this is for the year 2017. So this is not the current year like I've been talking about. But all of you who come to these meetings know that I'm a big advocate for financial transparency and bringing together all of our resources here in this organization. And one part of Unity Church of Hawaii's organization is Unity School. And in the past and today, you've continued to see financial statements that do not include the financial results of Unity School. Joanne Adams, as our new president of the Board of Trustees, has been working very hard to remedy that situation. And as she talked about the work she's been doing to meet the requirements of the Attorney General's office, one of them is to provide full financial transparency about Unity School and its finances, which are very important because the revenues of Unity School far exceed the revenues of the church itself. So it really is quite a large operation that needs to have full accountability. So this year, when Unity Worldwide Ministries sent us their note, oh, you need to do your annual report, Reverend Tim and I talked about it at some length and came up with a strategy for reporting on Unity School that would be in line with what had been set out by Unity Worldwide Ministries. So the way we decided to do it, we showed the full revenues last year of the church, $493,000. Those revenues included over $98,000 of cost-sharing money that came from Unity School. So we backed that out, and then we added in the net ordinary income of Unity School, which is quite a prosperous operation, a very successful operation, which was $346,000. And that brought us up to total revenues $741,000 for our full organization. Then we looked at our remaining expenses, the expenses of the church, $503,000. That still left us with net ordinary income for the year of $238,000. So that was something that we felt was a good representation of what goes on in this nonprofit organization that includes a ministry, a church, several other ministries, which includes a school. And the prosperity for the year 2017 of that whole organization was $238,000. customers. I just wanted to share that with you to let you know that we are all thinking about this holistically as one organization, and it's my expectation that in the near future, when I bring you a monthly report, it will include not only the expenses and revenues of the church, but also of Unity School, which is a preschool serving almost 100 students each year. Let's see. And then, of course, we also show how much we tithed to Unity Worldwide Ministries and Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute, because we are also a tithing church and are feeling our own ownership of the worldwide organization and our participation in it. So that's my report. Are there any other questions or suggestions? Yes.
We need a microphone. It's being live streamed.
You can use mine.
I did not see the revenues and expenses in the bulletin this Sunday. Is that no longer in the bulletin? Oh,
Sorry, but I'll give it back to you. The revenues used to be in the bulletin. We didn't have the expenses. We used to have weekly revenues in the bulletin, and I do like that system. I think that for a period of time, beginning with the very busy end of last year, Reverend Tim made the decision to see how it worked without it being in there, because it sometimes raised more questions than it answered questions. But I think it's good for people to focus on the ownership of the organization and how we're doing financially. So I'm hoping at some point we can revisit putting it back in. And Reverend Tim, when he gives his report, may have more comments on that issue. Did you want your microphone? Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I should have been suspicious when I finished so early that I might have forgotten something, and I had. I do want to make an announcement that once we submit the documents, which will be submitted electronically to the AG, we have in the process uncovered the 2 large binders that were submitted at the last AG inquiry. So we will make that information available and the other information of the current one available electronically. We'll roll out the details more in June. Please don't come up and ask for information now. I'm just totally focused on meeting that deadline on Tuesday. But in early June, we can start talking about how you can do that. But I do want to make sure that people know that that information will be made available. Now, I also forgot the good news portion that Thomas, there you moved and you scared me. Thomas is going to share with us. Hooray! Action item has happened.
So in order to, real quickly, I will just let you know that there were 2 action items that were on, that were at the top of the list for us for the year. The first one was the gutters. The second was with regards to the fountains. Fountains were funded. We're in the process of getting fountains put in. There will probably just be one at the present time unless we decide that we need to do differently. We had one that was out here outside of the women's restroom, and then there was one in Connection Central. The one out here in the outside was unprotected. It got into the weather. It got rusted out. It didn't last very long, and it was somewhat abused of a night where it wasn't protected. So at present, we're looking at just putting one on the inside. We've got a couple of bids for that, and it's a bi-level one that you can use for water bottles and that kind of stuff, as well as a fountain. The second thing that we're in the process of doing, and we got a loan from Unity Worldwide Ministries to be able to help us with, is with regards to the gutters. We've got it to where we're going to gutter the entirety of the lower campus building with the drainage out of it, instead of pouring down here into the middle of the courtyard, which floods out, and some of us have dug that whole sump pump stuff up to be able to get the water out. But to make a long story short, we're going to try as much as possible to let all the water drain out of the parking lot on that one side, and then come from this side, go down between the school part and the lower school part here, running the PVC out to the street so that all of this drainage will go that direction instead of pooling right down there and flooding the bottom of that. The board said that they would budget up to $7,000 to do that. We got a number of bids. Some of them were much higher than that, but we were able to get one bid that came in that was not only going to take care of that, but was also going to take care of this side of the chapel sanctuary and the admin building for somewhere in that neighborhood, $6,200. So that bid or that proposal has been signed. They are going to come out and do it the week of June the 11th. So if anybody wants to come out and help watch whatever, feel free to do so. After that is done, we're going to have a Bondo party. Trying to Bondo the areas that had termite underneath the eaves and that kind of stuff. And so we will announce when we're going to try to do that. And anybody that wants to come help paint or put Bondo plastic stuff in where the termites had eaten on it, we'll let everybody come help us. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. And if you could have your pen handy, I received a request about a pet blessing. So when you give your report, maybe you could touch on pet blessing. And with that, our fabulous senior minister. Hooray!
All right, I didn't have time. Let's see. Red? Red. I didn't have time to write that down yet. I like to do pet blessings in October, if that's a possibility, that coincides with the feast day of St. Francis, the patron saint of animals. I have a St. Francis outfit even, so I'd love to use it. Haven't used it here yet. It might be a little warmer here, but few things I wanted to say. The loan. Thank you for bringing that up. We're grateful for Unity Worldwide Ministries, who did give us a loan. I think it was about $4,700 to help with that guttering project, and that was something that I had worked on with them. There's another grant that I'd like to work on still with them, so hopefully we can do that. I want to thank the school. Sergio does an excellent job, and Amy, who is their bookkeeper, for helping us. And there's some people here who've put in a tremendous amount of time. Joanne and Kathy, Debbie, Thomas, to help answer these questions and inquiries from the Attorney General's office. So thank you all, and happy birthday. Quite a birthday for Joanne Adams. What a way to celebrate. Thank you, Jerry. And we're going to have some classes coming up. We're going to have a week of intensives in July. I'm trying to remember the dates. But in July, from Monday through Friday, we'll have some intensives. So there will be several licensed Unity teachers: Catherine Burton, Johanna Kelly, Reverend Gio, June Dillinger, and I will be teaching meditation classes in the evenings, Monday through Friday of that particular week. And we will get the information to you about what week that is. But that's probably my favorite SEE class to teach, is meditation. I suppose there are several things I specialize in. That would be probably the primary one. So I really look forward to teaching that. And I am very, very... I wanted to say one other thing regarding the school. I've been talking a lot with Bruce Vercuse. He is the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer for Unity Worldwide Ministries, regarding a number of things, including the relationship with our school and the school's finances. And, this has been quite a process, but Bruce absolutely verifies that the Board of Trustees here, since it is not a separate corporation, since it does not have its own board, the Board of Trustees absolutely has the right to request any information that is needed from the school. Now, something that he pushed for as like a first line thing to do, and he's really encouraging me to do that, is to set up an agreement of the church and the school, even though it's all one ministry, to have a written agreement that, here is the protocol that we all agree to. Here are the processes and the procedures that we all agree to. He really emphasized the importance of that. He said, yes, Tim, the board can request anything and they need to receive that. But he really he thought it would be good to really first get into place this agreement so that we're all on the same page. Are you needing me, Diana, or just standing up to take notes? Okay. And let's see. This coming Thursday, our board will have a special board meeting where we're dealing with the things that were left over from this last Thursday. And they will be informational things. David Tusaka, who I've met with several times, will be presenting to the board ideas, marketing ideas, to help our church to grow, to expand. He's very much in the church growth. Church growth is something that I've studied about a lot, and it's certainly an important part of my vision. Growth numerically, financially, spiritually, it's all very, very important. So he'll be presenting to us and interacting with the board if you would like to come this Thursday night at 6. And also, Suzanne Sims will be coming. Another part of my vision is to see retreats occurring through Unity Church of Hawaii. First of all, because it's an excellent opportunity to provide education and a very spiritual experience in a very beautiful environment with a counseling center and a wellness center on hand. And it can also be another potential revenue stream. And so Suzanne Sims, who has been a director of a retreat center before and has done a lot of amazing things, has put together a proposal, and she will be presenting that to the board this Thursday. And those are the only 2 agenda items. So if you're interested in finding out more about those things, please come and be with us. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity. I'm on the board of trustees for Unity Worldwide Ministries, and it's an honor to serve on that and to work with issues and growth opportunities of our entire movement all around the world. And I am the board liaison for international ministries for Unity Worldwide Ministries, so I have the opportunity to work with people from different countries all around the world and discuss strategy and ways that we can all work together for the betterment and good of all. So you did have something for me. July 9th through the 13th is the intensive. Thank you. July 9th through the 13th. You know what? Diana is always so spot on and helps us so much with so many things. Let's give her a hand. Thank you. I'm sorry? I knew that. The sponsors for the Aloha breakfast, I knew that when I didn't see an announcement about the name and I looked over at Reverend Levitt and he's like, I knew it was them. Yeah. They're so awesome. I love you guys. So where was I? The board. The UWM board. So about 4 or 5 times a year we meet face to face. And when we meet face to face, it's for about 4 or 5 days in a row. We'll meet all day, board meetings for 4 or 5 days. And then we have activities in the evening sometimes as well. And we will go out to various area churches and present and make connections. So it's not just a playtime, okay? But we have built such a tight bond, and they're such a wonderful group. I want to share with you briefly a couple of things that are going on in the Unity movement, of which we're a part. I think it's helpful to know what's happening in our movement since we're a Unity church. I don't know. So, two things. One is these last board meetings, we just approved a spiritual director course. Spiritual directors are people who meet with someone and work with the guidance that that person has within to help them to understand their spiritual direction, their spiritual journey. They're not trying to implant a spiritual journey. They're trying to help reveal what one's journey is. And so Unity is starting a spiritual director education and certification program, which I was advocating very, very strongly for. I've been the beneficiary of numerous spiritual directors that I went to for long periods of time to go into depth. Most of them were Catholic, because Catholics have a long tradition of spiritual directors. And it was a nun who helped me to get in touch with the Kingdom of God Within, who introduced me to Matthew Fox, and who helped lead me into my Unity journey. Okay? So, anyway, that's very exciting news. Another thing you may not know, Unity is two organizations. Unity is Unity Worldwide Ministries, that has oversight of all the ministries around the world, whether they be churches, study groups, or alternative ministries, like ministries with the homeless, ministries with abused women, ministries of all different kinds. And then there is Unity World Headquarters, Unity Village. They're the ones that have Silent Unity, our publications like the Daily Word, and Unity Village. In the 60s, these became two different organizations that all work together for the one movement of unity. And when I was first becoming a Unity minister, the very first conference, I think, that I was at, as a new spiritual leader of a Unity church, I got up to the front and I was going through their program. And I said, sometimes I feel like I'm in a divorced family. At times, I need to run over to Mom's house, like Unity World Headquarters. And other times I need to run over to Dad's house, which is Unity Worldwide Ministries, because they were 2 miles apart. I said, I know they still love each other. And we get together for Christmas and stuff. But it's really confusing to run back and forth and try to figure these two out. And people were laughing. But I want you to know that in these last board meetings, we had a joint board meeting of both boards, Unity World Headquarters and Unity Worldwide Ministries. We met together. The leadership, the CEOs, the COOs, CFOs, the board members of each organization to a person, all committed to us becoming one organization, and we've been taking a lot of steps to do that, and that we are willing to do that regardless of what it does to our position, regardless of whether that position will exist anymore. People are making a commitment, and that is being rolled out in the June convention. So please be praying for that. And so I will be going to that convention in June. And I'm sorry those are back-to-back, but we have face-to-face meetings in May to help prepare us for the convention in June. And what happens is they send us a $1,000 check per quarter to assist with my expenses for traveling. It's not pay for being on the board. It's to help with travel reimbursement. And any amount that this church spends for my travel expenses is counted against the money that we would have tithed anyway to Unity Worldwide Ministry. So it doesn't actually cost us extra money for me to make these trips because it's part of our tithe. And they reimburse us $1,000 per quarter for that. So I just want to make that clear so no one thought that we were burning up money on that travel. It's just a different way of allocating what would have been tithed anyway. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Our jet-setting minister and our prodigal minister wife, but no, we're fine with it. Okay. No, we're actually thrilled. You know, I've often said here in Hawaii, we'll know more about what's going in Tonga than we will about what's going on in Missouri. And it's wonderful to have you here and make us feel a part of that larger organization. I really think that's true. Okay. All right. We are running a little bit late, but I would, if the group would, I was wondering if you would like to talk about two topics. When Albert Wingate was here, he spent an afternoon, I think 2 of them even, on Hopkoff, honoring our past and creating our future. Is there any interest at all in picking that up and doing more work with it? And the other point is, I can't remember if I was board president or if I was just on the board. But at any rate, at some point, when we were doing the surveys on Reverend Tim's evaluation, people said, you really should allow us an opportunity to give this same sort of feedback about the board. So that is why I would like to spend, gosh, not too much. It depends on how much you want to get done by 2 o'clock. Let's say 10 minutes, because then we could still be done at 2, and if you really feel strongly that we need more. So any of your thoughts on either of those topics, please come up and share with us, and Debbie will be taking copious notes, okay? I know it takes you a while to warm up.
Hi, my name is Jack Randall, an interested member for many years. My comment would just be about board evaluation. I don't know personally about congregational board evaluation, filling out similar things like we did for Reverend Tim. I think that might be useful. But what I'd more likely like to suggest is that the board do an internal evaluation, if they don't do it now, and I'm not sure if they don't. That is to say, have some mechanism by which they can self-evaluate how have we done over the course of the last year along certain topical lines. How was our cooperation with each other? How well did we address the key objectives and goals of this organization for the year? How well did we listen to congregants' input from various sources? And is there a formal way that we might consider doing that, again, as a part of our evaluation, maybe in an ongoing way? I've always been a proponent that every board member should have perhaps a group of people that perhaps voted for them to be a board member, that they would be assigned to and have some kind of a mechanism by which that board member could receive feedback from those members who were assigned to that particular board member. How are things going? How am I doing? How are we communicating to you as a congregation? So those are my thoughts. I think the board could do perhaps more work than it does on a self-evaluation kind of model or protocol. Thank you.
That sounds great, Jack. There. Juliet here. I just want to say briefly that it's more of a feeling that I'm getting of more peace within the board. It's smoother, getting more done. And it's just a feeling that I have deep down of more peace and the way I feel a board should be running. So I just wanted to thank you guys and for the new board members. And it just feels good. It just feels the whole being in the Sunday service and being around, I don't know. It just feels really deep down peaceful and good. I don't know how else to put it. So thank you. Thank you.
I second that, Juliet. Mary Paulson here. The Hopkop thing was really valuable. We all benefited from it. We got a lot of information. And the results have been quite good. And I'd like to lay it to rest. I think that it should not be revived. I think it's time for us to move on. And I think that everybody I know is more than willing just to move on and put the pain. Sometimes when we stir up emotions and you stir them up all over again, then we have to deal with all of the fallout from that. We did that. We've been there. We've done that. We've done it for far too long, in my opinion. So I'd like to say I would vote to just lay it down, move on, and let's go forward in wonderful, wonderful opportunity here for everything new. Thank you.
I don't know if I'll be speaking out of turn or from total ignorance, but I'm going to try anyway. Is there a way, I was a member of the board 1,000 years ago, just for a short time, but is there a way that when there is dissension of any kind or personality difficulties, that there's a facilitator who is not on the board, can assist this to happen? Has there ever been anything like that? I mean, I do this with schools with people who teach different, and I'm not volunteering. I'm just saying that I think there should be someone who isn't of the board who can facilitate whatever difficulty.
Just to let you know, when we were I don't want to say if it's at the height, but when there was a lot of contention within the board, we spent a full Saturday at Thomas Gallagher's home, which if you haven't been there is therapeutic in and of itself. But more importantly, he brought in his incredibly talented sister who does corporate facilitation internationally. And we learned a tremendous amount about each other and about our styles and why, because there was such a difference in styles, there seemed to be a natural subgrouping within. I know I hadn't realized that the people that I tended to be drawn to were the people of precisely the style that I was, and I saw the same thing with other people. And this, I think, helped us to identify why some of the dynamics were happening and to also realize how we could reach out to others because of their difference in style. In other words, the ways that I would come naturally for me should be modified for someone like Debbie because her style is different. And I think it's helped immensely. So that has been done. The other thing that we did is that we had Reverend Tom give us a presentation over 2 days, I believe, 2 evenings on Ho'oponopono to learn more about the Hawaiian method for moving past these. So we are doing some things. I do like the idea of a self-evaluation, and I do want to say at least part of what is going on right now is when we evaluated Tim, one of the components that we did was the contract checklist, and that was to say on both sides of the aisle, has the board and the church met its responsibilities, and has Tim met his responsibilities? So we have looked at it from that small perspective. There has been that level of self-evaluation, but I think Jack's suggestion is much broader than that, and we can certainly talk about that.
Hello? Okay. No, your request, I think, is real, and Joanne spoke of a couple of instances in recent history. Having served on various boards over the last 25 years, it's not at all uncommon for the boards to have trainings or to bring in people from outside to help them communicate. We're a group of people who have different views and different values and different ideas, and to get us to work homogeneously, it's not always easy. So that's really, it's not an uncommon thing for there to be some discord and for us to go through processes to help us work together. So, so what you've experienced is not unusual. It really isn't.
And knowing what style I am, and knowing that there are other people who have different styles, and that we communicate differently is one thing. But in the moment when there is pilikia, that's when you need someone to be able to be available in that moment rather than have it become huge and then you bring in someone to train you. It's an ongoing thing where there is someone who's available to handle the situation in the moment. That's more like of what I'm talking about. And to do trainings along the way is perfect and wonderful. Yeah. So, yeah. To whom do I thank you?
Are there any more comments? Okay. We will certainly take a look at that as well. Did you get that down, Deb? Because I missed that particular one. Okay. If there are no further comments on that suggestion, then we are now at the point which I've called committee meetup. And in specific, and of course I've lost the piece of paper, Richard is in charge of two committees, election procedure and strategic planning. And he would like anyone who is interested in either of those groups to meet with him. Richard, will you please stand? Why don't we have Richard please stand? Richard's in charge of those two committees, as well as Jerry. Jerry is on both committees, just the strategic planning committee. Thank you. And I failed to introduce Jan Fitzgerald, if you please stand. She is on the policy committee along with Ricky Banning, and I don't see Ricky. So she is going to be taking these, when we come up with issues, we are now going to have a systematic way of saying, okay, here's the issue, will you please turn this into a policy? Kathy Whitmire is on the finance committee along with Tom. Do you chair it? I'm not sure who chairs the finance committee. Yeah, Kathy chairs it. Thomas is on the facilities committee as well as the finance committee and chairs that. I am doing fundraising. You notice how I dropped the D because I'm really more about throwing parties and raising money. But we're going to try and combine both. And I've had the privilege of working with Sue Bergman and Kathy Burton. And again, Catherine Burton. And again, we are willing to have additional members. So at this time, it is 1:55. I would like for people to, if there's any interest in any of these committees, please see, I forgot, Marcia Bethards, who's not here, and Debbie Catania, who is here. They are running the membership committee, and that I see as a rather broad committee that not only talks about the nuts and bolts of membership, but how do we malama the membership. Okay, have I got everything? Looks like I've covered, you can see I'm nervous now that I've forgotten things. It looks like I've covered all the committees. So Sally. the policy committee is kind of a dual function. They're going to look at what policies that we have are existing to look to see if there are any pukas. And then as we come up against issues, like we had one in the recent board meeting where we realized that it was really sort of incomplete and we need a policy around the current practice, then we spin that off to them and they will draft a policy which will later appear on a board agenda. So that's what they're going to be doing is taking issues as we find them that there is not a policy and developing a policy around it and then bringing that to the board. So you'll know about policies as they come through the board on the board agenda. Okay. And there's also a safety procedures committee that Reverend Tim is on with Ricky Banning, and the two of them, that's about keeping this place safe when we have interruptions of various sorts or threats of various sources. And he's, Reverend Tim has acquired many of the materials from UWM and other churches, which he's going to use as the basis for our policy. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So let's just take, well, maybe we should do this in the reverse order. I'm afraid I don't want people to scatter to the four winds, but I'm wondering, should we have the closing prayer and then do the meetup, or would you like the meetup before and then we do the closing prayer? Do the closing prayer now? That's what feels right to me, too. So, Tim, would you like to give a closing prayer? And then, please, anyone interested in any of these committees, even mildly, even curiosity, please come and talk with us. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a deep breath. Extend golden healing light out to each person here, each part of our spiritual Hana, our virtual congregants, those who are a part of us physically, knowing we all work together in perfect harmony. It all works together with grace and ease for the highest and best good of this church. And for all of this, we give thanks, and we say together, and so it is. Amen. Weave? Okay. Let's hold hands if we're going to weave. It's hard for me to do that without holding hands. Let's all weave together here. Can we close the circle? Can we close the circle? Okay. Weave, weave, weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Weave, weave, weave us together. Weave us together in unity and love. Okay? All right.
Please see a picture, any of the committee chairs if you're interested.
See the committee chairs? Yes. All right. Awesome. Happy birthday to you. Woo! Happy birthday to you. Woo! Happy birthday, dear Joanne. Happy birthday to you.